I don't remember having about 170 mates when I left Hawke's Bay. It's something like 20 years ago. But it is a little overwhelming to see such a turnout, but then I know there's a second speaker. So that's got to be. I'm surprised you didn't come for the dessert. I'm going to just speak to you a little bit about the Icehouse, who it is. The idea was so simple, like the very best of them, they're whispered. The person with the idea doesn't shout it out loud, he just thinks it under his breath. A bit like Jim Wattie when he sort of said, he looked at the fruit trees that had been picked for fresh crop and he saw the remaining fruit on the tree that wasn't good enough for it, and he just sort of looked at it and he just said something's got to be done about that. But he was a man who made things happen. He wasn't a man who just whispered it. In my little way, I'd been involved in chairing an Auckland group looking at the region's economy, much like you guys do these days too. And I just stopped, and I must have stopped in the moment and thought, SMEs, haven't heard of those before. Owner managers, God, they got money in it as well as their management. Corporate guys only have their reputation. Shit, these guys really do need a bit of help. Where do they get their learning from, I thought? They get it inside their business from their own experience, like they repeat day after day after day. But a corporate guy, I'd been to Stanford, 6 weeks at Stanford. Where's their Stanford? Aren't they entitled to a Stanford? Don't they need a Stanford? Yeah, Icehouse. That's it. Simple, really, and of course the best of thoughts are dead simple. This evening I should thank my colleagues down here who brought me down here, but the leaders of the Icehouse down here, and I do mean that sincerely because I hadn't quite expected it had made the resonance that it has, but it has. And you being here tonight is testimony to that. But their endeavours are to be thanked. So governance, what an absurd bloody word. The title of the name on the invitation was about governance in SMEs, and here you are, 100 odd of you wanting to hear about that. But my title up here doesn't even say governance. It says a thing called sort of trusted advisor. So why is that? Well, it's sort of the issue, really. You see, the sort of origins of governance are when the investor and the company were separate, when they were genuinely separated. So the investor needed to have somebody look after their investment. But an owner-manager, he's there. It's his. He doesn't need anyone to look after it. It's his company. He can see it every day, every moment. So why does he need help? Why is a trusted advisor, let's call it, and let's think about that as we go through this conversation. Why is that called governance? Or is governance just the forum for the conversation between the trusted advisor and the owner-manager? So, here are some questions that I can see as I listen to or I look out at owner-managers. These are the sort of things I see them saying to me or thinking to themselves. Their business is going gangbusters, but it's all chaos. They're not on top of it. Invoices are probably wrong, maybe not even being recovered. The information systems are lousy, so they're not in control of their business. But that second one up there about Australia, it's too much the culture in our country that we can't win in Australia. That's just not right. That's just not right. That's poor business. But many a Kiwi is overwhelmed by the thought and quickly takes the point, oh hell, how can you win if the warehouse lost? You can't win in Australia. So that's the thought. I won't go. And then I think about them in their business, the owner-manager in his business. The idea, many of you who are owner-managers in this room, how many of you are there? How many owner-managers are there in the room? Just put your hands up, because I'm talking to you. Yeah. People who own and manage your own firms. Okay. You start with a staff member who puts his time into the business with you. 10 years later, he's bloody hopeless. He really just can't do the job. Yet, how do you deal with that? How do you actually tell him that it's actually about performance? How do you then lose him as a friend, as a colleague? Yet he did everything for you at the beginning. And am I good enough to run the company? How could I do better? Sort of uncertainty that I have as an owner-manager. After all, I only went through school. I didn't go through university. I've done quite well. The business is doing 5 million. Yeah, we're making 300,000 a year. I paid myself a couple of $100,000 last year, so it's not too bad. Well, bugger me, you're actually bloody outstanding. You're good. But really, how do we turn 5 million into 10 million, 10 into 20? How do you feel about that? So am I up for that? Am I able to do that? A question mark for himself. And then we should be using management practices more than an entrepreneur, say something more than just what I did at the beginning, but less than corporate. Don't give me corporate. But what ones do I choose? Are they all about information systems? Are they all about HR? And what about this thing called governance? What do I do? Which one of these do I use? And then about themselves. When you're on your own, which you are as an owner-manager, you are definitely on your own, much more than a corporate manager. You're not surrounded by colleagues. You're surrounded by some of your staff, but they're not generally up there in the higher echelons of the business with you. But then if you conduct yourself outside the business, who do you trust? Who do you really share what's getting at you in your business? Who do you talk to about that? And how do I go about this succession exit thing, so often talked about? Such a difficult thing. Heart and mind confused. What's the right thing to do? Children. Staff who aren't in the family. How do I treat them? All of those very telling, awkward questions. And then my lifestyle's lousy. Can't find the balance. I'm working my butt off, but I'm not getting far. Those are the sorts of questions that we find are on the minds of owner-managers. And these are the sorts of questions that we think owner-managers need support with. And when we think of what they are, we recognise they're outside the comfort zone of the owner-manager. They're not an everyday question. They're a bloody 3 o'clock in the morning question. And then fortunately you get busy in the day and it gets crowded out by the activity. But you get on holiday and it comes back again because your mind empties of busyness. Oh, for busyness. And so we think of them in a category of they don't know what they don't know. Often the types of questions I've posed there are things they don't know what they don't know. And if I think of the circumstances in which these problems, these areas come up, they're in legal agreements. And I'll tell you one. It's a terrible story really, but it's a story of two fellows who came in to see me about 4 years ago. They had made a food invention in a very clever way, made a production process much more convenient for the user, in home actually. And the product would have been outstanding, was outstanding. Because they were inventors and they weren't marketers, they didn't look to use the technology worldwide. They did look, though, to sell the technology. So they sold it to a multinational. Good move. They sold the rights of it to a multinational. They then heard the multinational CEO talking about their opportunity as a multinational to use that technology around the world. And they talked about their opportunities in the UK, North America, China. Stunning. The only thing was, my two guys said to me, we didn't sell them the rights to the world. We sold them the rights to Australasia. So I said, okay, well, look, let me have a look. So I had a look. I didn't like it. I said, look, overnight I'll show it to a commercial lawyer in town. I got the information in the morning. I still didn't like it. I told them, you've sold them Australasian rights, but you've sold them world rights. You think you'd sold Australasian, you've sold world rights. The only trouble was they'd sold it at the Australasian price. So you spent 10 years on a technology, you crack it, you solve the problem, you get to a point of now I can sell it, and you sell your 10 years' work for an Australasian price when you've sold it to the world. And of course that company was using it in the world. Why did that happen? And that's the question, of course. It happened because I asked them, well, who did you use for your advice? And they said, well, we used our local commercial lawyer. They were a provincial New Zealand firm. I said, well, why did you use that? Well, we trusted them. But what was their knowledge of this type of transaction? How have they done these transactions of selling international rights? And then, of course, I said to them, who do you think the multinational used? Think they used a local lawyer for that job? They were raped. So the learning out of these things is when you move outside your comfort zone, you probably know it, but you don't want to see it. You go to something familiar, which is your local lawyer, but your local lawyer hasn't got the knowledge. It's like you go to your GP for cancer. You don't. You go there for a start, he's got to refer you somewhere, but if they don't refer you, this is serious. So that's what happened. Other areas that can happen are in management practices. A guy, Graham Catley, who's been a stunning success in his business, he came in and saw me a few years ago, and his simple words were, the business has got beyond my ability to manage it. It's just got bigger and harder, and I can't deal with all those staff stuff. And I don't know what management practice to adopt. And so I've been with him for 5 years as a colleague, helping him with that. So these are the types of problems that we find owner-managers struggle with. Now, to deal with it, you've certainly got to be objective. You need to be as on the job as much as you can. You've got to network as much as you can in order to learn about risks like this. You've got to have a high curiosity to learn, a sort of intention of always inquiring, and always a mind of doubt. So if I don't sign if I don't feel right, but you must understand what you're doing. Sort of when we think then of, well, the type of advice you need, and the best way we capture it is in this word wisdom. We think that best captures the essence of the advice that's needed. The quality of being wise, knowledge, and the capacity to make use of it. Not just knowledge, the capacity to make use of it. Knowledge of the best ends, so I know the outcome I'm looking for here. Knowledge of the best means, I know how I'm going to use this knowledge. Discernment, slight shaving of thought here. I think discreetly, how will I think of this? Judgment, word that's totally misunderstood, not nearly given enough emphasis. Discretion, knowing whether to go in the front door or the back door. Sage, on the street, wiseness, smart, skills, and dexterity. So knowledge itself is proud that he's learned so much. Good for him. Wisdom is humble that he knows no more. So those are the sorts of qualities that we think that owner-managers are looking for as trusted partners. But what's the forum? What's the forum for that relationship? Is it as an advisor, so-called sort of on the outside of the company but giving advice when needed? Or is this type of advice much preferred to be continuously available to the owner-manager and available in a place where I can see you quite frequently and in a place where the advisor, come now director, feels his accountability to the company and moves inside the tent and genuinely joins up with the owner-manager? Far different a place from that of advisor. I'm now completely inside with you. I'm even beyond the role of sort of chairman in some sense. I'm a partner with you. I care about your business, and I'm not here today and gone tomorrow. I'm with you 365 days of the year. You just have to call me, or if I see something, I call you. But I'm completely accessible to you. And so my interests are your interests. I'm a partner. That little diagram just reminds us what a board does. So if the person is, let's say, chairman of your company, then by and large the board will do three things. It will decide the strategy of the company. Critical matter. They'll ensure that the company has the resources to execute on the strategy. Systems, money, people, organisation. And lastly, they will monitor the business and its ongoing performance. Those are the three things, but of course it's the questions behind those things and the personal matters that typically rest in an owner-managed business. I've been working on this question for the last 3 or 4 months because I wanted to get a better sense of what's the right answer for owner-managers. And so in my inquiry, I went to my good friends at the bank, BNZ, and I asked them. I had a group of about 6 or 8 senior managers who interface with many owner-managers. And I was quite taken aback by the advice they gave me, the information they gave me. No, I got the wrong one. First comment, they will see the numbers. So the anxiety for the owner-manager is, as expressed to the bank or as thought by the bank, God, they're going to see the numbers and they're going to see me. Much easier to stay with a tried and true trifecta. The accountant who I've been with for years, who knows our company, knows our family, the lawyer who knows our family and business, and the banker who's known us. So a default to those people who actually you pay to do work for you, the accountant and the lawyer, so who are not truly independent and certainly aren't grounded in the knowledge of the full business the way someone else might be. But it's easier to deal with them than it is with the outsider. Then to the idea of a board with independent directors, when it's floated at them, I'll get back to you on that. So a notion of, I don't want to deal with this. I'd rather not. And then if they feel they have to appoint a board, then they appoint those that toe the line. Now this then, when it gets to the bottom line, as those of you at the front can see, the comment was that 75% of New Zealand SME boards are patsy boards. They toe the line, they do it as the owner wants, they're getting paid, they get their 30 grand, whatever it is, and they just are there. They turn up. And it doesn't rock the boat of the owner-manager. But what's their worth? As we've, or particularly I've looked at the role of a chairman in chairman in SMEs, but for some of my learnings about this, I've looked at large companies, and in this case it's a study done in the UK of public companies, chairman of 22 large companies, looking at what are the characteristics that make a very good chairman. What are they? And I picked out here 5 out of the 8 that they list as being really pertinent to an SME. The first thing is a deep understanding of the business. It's not just they know the business model, they know the production, they know the sales system, they know the way the company operates, they know the customers, they know the core competence, they know the capabilities that are needed, they know the competitive advantages that a firm like this must have. They're embedded in it, they get it. They're future orientated, so the learnings are from the past. We get that, but we're future orientated. They build and get the most from the board, so they're relationship builders. They've got a trusting relationship with the owner-manager, so it's a confident working relationship. It's candid, it's respectful, but it's a very close and confident relationship. And finally, he takes tough decisions. So they do things that they're able to do because they're more objective, because they're not engaged in the running with the owner-manager of the business. They're removed. And so they are able to confront stuff that much more, and they take the owner-manager through those tougher times better. They provide air cover. They look after him during those times. But it's not their decision still. They're not the owner, but they're there for that person. So in the way I've written it there, I see the guy, the person, the woman, the man, as a true, genuine partner in all but money, but in all they've got, in their skill and their knowledge. So if we take this a little further and we take those learnings from the last couple of slides, then the question is, well, who's the right person for me? And I think for thinking about that, you've got to think of people. Many of us are capable in certain fields of work and less capable in other fields of work. So in my case, I'm okay. Anything with food, I should be pretty reasonable. Anything of land-based industries, I should be pretty okay. When I get into technology, I'm a risk. My judgment would be poor, my understanding is not as sound. If you move, though, into functional capabilities, you're looking for sales, marketing, production, financial. What know-how do you need from this person? So you look for what bias towards that are you looking for? And then thirdly, what dimension of difference do you make to the current staff who are there? And so if you've got a slight weakness in your finance area, would this person really blend in and bring something quite strong, much stronger in that field? Now, I've got up there some terms, some descriptors that I've given to types of people. One of them I met, the first one, and I've called it commercial savvy. And this fellow, I met him, I've taken on, believe it or not, I took on the chairmanship of a veterinary business. It's a stunning business. It's deep in the South Island where I love to go. It's going to be a great business. It is a good business, it'll be a great business. But I went around meeting the chairman of our competitors. I met the chairman of VetEnt, which is the biggest company. And I met him in Auckland, and we chatted, and he was a laid-back accountant. But he was more than that. He'd been an accountant in his training, but at the age of about 50, he wanted to be more in business than he did an accountant. So he chose 2 companies to work with. One was a veterinary business, and the other was a bakery business. But it was Gisborne Bakery. It wasn't bloody New Zealand Bakery. It was Gisborne. And I thought, well, what the hell? What are you going to do with a show like that? Why would you choose a future there? Well, he chose it. And after a year or so of it running, he saw that Sealord were running he found out that Sealord were needing somebody, they wanted to contract out their coatings and breadcrumbs business. So he said, oh, we could do that. I think we could do that. So he got his boys on the local bus at 3 o'clock out of Gisborne. They went down to Nelson. And they knew they had to be under 150. That was the number. So they got under $150, whatever that figure means. He got under 150. That's okay. And then he said, well, we've got to have more than that. We've got to have a hook. Oh, okay. What's that? Well, we're up against multinationals. We've got to have stuff that they would never do. Okay. Well, what do you think that'll be? Well, he said, Well, look, after we've earned so much money, with this much, why don't we share the rest with them? With Sealord. Okay. And we'll just make all our costings transparent. After all, we've got nothing to hide. Well, who won? The multinationals were never, ever going to be able to match that sort of stuff. Never. He got the job. They did that for a few years, 5 years or so. He got a call from Simplot in Tasmania, one of the big potato companies in Australia. Simplot said, can you guys come over here and do to Tasmania and do the coatings and breadcrumbs for our business in Tasmania? Oh, shit, okay. Well, I see we've got some staff to do that. So he found a couple of blokes and they went over there and that was fine. So he did that for another 5 or 8 years or so. He gets another call. This time it's from Boise, Idaho. It's only last year this happened. Biggest potato factory being built in the world. Who do they want? I want the Gisborne bakery guys to do the coatings and breadcrumbs. Now, why did they get that? Why did they get that? They got that because this guy was savvy. He sort of did stuff and thought about stuff, and he was good on the street and smart, and he found opportunities and got it done. So that's if you're looking for them, what do I need? That's a type. I think you can classify that person. The second one up there is capability builder, and it's sort of what I do. I work to build the capability of the company with information, HR, management practices, governance practices. I try to imbue the company with strength, good strategy, good knowledge, good people. And I do it sort of through like this. I look at particularly the top of a company. So I start off in the management area of the company, and I look to see the capabilities there. And I particularly look to see how good is the senior management team, because I want to know that the top people with the owner-manager are really capable in their field, and they're people for tomorrow. So we do that. And then I sort of look at what do we need at a board level, and we do that, but it's only after we've done the management stuff. Maybe a year later that I do that. And of course, then I look at the interface between the board and the management. So the board's there for its strategy and resource, and then it works with the owner-managers in this area of business planning, organisation, senior staff pay, those things that interface at a senior level between a manager and the board and the chairman. So chairman, CEO. So that's another capability that's different than someone who's particularly commercially savvy. But there will be other ways of thinking about it. There's people who've got strong networks. There's people who are very strong in people relationships. There's all types of people they're very good all-rounders, but they have this competence that's extra special to them. So as you as owner-managers think about it, you need to discerningly think about what's the competence I need. Now, this is a company that I've been with now for 6 years or so. It is one of New Zealand's best food companies. It's those of you won't recognise by the name, but Alison's Pantry in the New World supermarkets. It's the bulk food, and with the bins, you get in there with your scoop, put it out, put it in a plastic bag, and you go up to the counter and pay for it on the way out. And they also own Mother Earth brand. But this is another way I want you to sort of see the way that a company can evolve. This company, in the 6 years I've been with it, has gone from 35 million, and today its running rate's about 150 million, and it's in New Zealand and it's big in Australia. And it's going to be much bigger than it is so far. So what's the infrastructure? How did that get undertaken? Well, in my case, we helped appoint an outsider before I joined. I came in later as chairman. This company was really not going to be worth a great deal while it only had a contract with foodstuffs in this Alison's Pantry category. The only buyer of it would probably be foodstuffs, so it didn't have enough value to it. It needed to have some branded food products, so FMCG type businesses. So they looked and they found Mother Earth, and they bought that business. And when we bought it, it had a turnover of 7 million, and today it's about 35 million. Both both in New Zealand and in Australia. The owner was looking to exit the business. So what's the best way for him to come out of it, yet stay close and have the contact with the business? So he came out of the CEO role, and we gave him the title and I think the very respectful term of founder. And the term founder, I think, gave him what it does. It gives you freedom to do whatever he wanted to with the company, but without disrespect to the management. But he could be engaged, and so he's stunning with all the, particularly the New World owners, Pack and Save owners. He's terrific. Fishing contests and a wide range of entertainment he provides for them. And he's much loved for that. But so's his company. Now, we then looked at our staff and said, well, who's going to replace Bernie Crosby as the CEO? And we thought maybe one of the three staff who are at the top of the company could do that. So we let them, the three of them reported to us for a year. So we lived with these three reporting to us, gave us a chance to see it, gave them an opportunity. At the end of the year, we said, oh, we don't think so. And so then we went out looking for a person with strong FMCG marketing capability, and we got a fellow, Andrew Smith, from Fonterra. Now, he'd had Australasian experience in branded food. So now we'd made the shift to a leading FMCG CEO who brought in other marketing capabilities from people that he'd known through his career. And at about this stage, we started to say, I think, why couldn't we take this capability we've got in New Zealand into Australia? And so then, well, how are we going to do that? And then again, the networks come into play. We knew that Wesfarmers were the owners of Coles, and I knew the CEO of Wesfarmers, Richard Goyder. So we had a conversation. I said, this category can provide a competitive advantage for Coles versus Woolworths. He understood that and introduced us to the top people in Coles. So again, we didn't have to start at the bottom of Coles and argue a case for a year or two, but rather we found our way in, fortunately, through the senior ranks of it. So now we then had our business starting to go into Australia, and then we started thinking about our board, and we needed to appoint a good Australian board, an Australian director. So again, in our backgrounds, there was a fellow who'd helped Watties with my launch of baked beans and spaghetti years ago into Australia. He was a retailer and had been head of Safeway and Franklin's. So he came in and on our board. And then a little bit later on, we looked at our own finance director, who was independent person, who was an accountant to the family, and we thought, no, we can strengthen this up too, and we brought in the recently retired CFO from the warehouse. Now, all the time you can feel this company's being upgraded in capability, improved in its knowledge and awareness and skills and the risk management that we had. And finally, we continued on our buying of small FMCG firms because we can see opportunities ahead of us to use the businesses that we've bought. So I only offer you that to help you see when you get your company going and you get the sort of around you a group of people who you can really trust and enable with you, you can really grow your business. You've got to start with something really good, but you can, and with the right people, you can grow it. So I sort of returned to where I started. I don't know that that's governance, what I've just described to you for an SME. But I do sort of know that the forum that we call governance or a board still is the right forum for that close association that I think an owner-manager needs with a trusted advisor. What do you think? Thank you very much.